Thank you very much.
You need the clicker.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Good morning, everyone. It's lovely to be here today. We have a great panel for you and 30 minutes to cover a lot of ground. So let me first introduce our panelists. We have David Bermeo from Terrafertil, who's joining us today from Ecuador. We have Charlotte Ward, who's currently based in the UK, and she and I collaborated in Africa for many years. And we have Brian Warshawsky, from Fenix International, who's based mostly on a plane, but officially in Paris. Thank you very much to the three of you for joining us this morning. So the subject of the panel is from SMEs to unicorns, and the idea is really to show that it is possible to scale enterprise solutions for these sustainable development goals, that it is possible to invest in these SMEs profitably, and that our whole sector is really at a tipping point. So impact investing was created as an expression and a concept by the Rockefeller Foundation in 2008. At the time, very few people really understood what it meant. Today, the industry has come together around a common understanding. And for the purpose of this conversation, what we mean by impact investing is profitable investments that are made with the intent to generate a net positive social and environmental impact. All right. Now, about 75% of impact investors are looking for market returns, on a risk-adjusted basis, and 25% of impact investors are agreeing to concessionary capital to create new products, new markets, or access new segments of beneficiaries. The impact investing industry has grown very fast over the last 10 years. The first challenge for us was to demonstrate you could invest profitably in impact solutions. And we today have, on a global basis, an invested portfolio of about $502 billion. We expect to continue to grow at a pace of about 20% per year. This growth is not just in terms of assets under management, it's also the range of products that are being developed for the impact investing industry. And in particular, impact investing was born with a focus on developing countries and mostly in private debt and private equity. But today, impact investing is really applicable to any segment of society and any geography. We see impact investing in Europe and the US. We see impact investing in cash, in real estate, and increasingly in listed securities as well. So with this premise, I think we'll get started. I thought maybe a bit of background would be helpful in the first minute of this panel. David, would you tell us what brought you to the idea of Terrafertil?
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, everybody. Very happy to be here. We started Terrafertil about 12 years ago with my brothers and two best friends with the idea to create a food company with sustainable impact, with added value and sustainable impact. That was our goal, and that continues to be our goal, to create growth with impact and with added value to all our stakeholders in the value chain.
Thank you. Charlotte, what about yourself? What brought you to impact investing? Maybe a little bit of insights on what you were doing in Africa and what you're doing now.
Thank you very much, Tim. What I was doing in Africa, I was managing a private foundation investing in sub-Saharan Africa for financial and social return. That's where we met. Really rolling up our sleeves and getting involved with SMEs and businesses from pilot through to early scaling. Now I work at the Global Innovation Fund as Managing Director, looking after our private sector investments. So the Global Innovation Fund is an impact-first investment platform backed by multiple governments and foundations. We have approximately $70 million committed and dispersed, investing in private and public sector. What I think is interesting about the GIF is that we really integrate development economics with the practice of private equity and venture capital to improve the lives and opportunities of the poorest people in developing markets, and trying to provide fit-for-purpose patient capital at times where it's most needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. What brought you to Fenix?
Thank you, Tim. Thank you to the UNDP for the invitation to come talk to you guys. So about 13 years ago, I was working with the One Laptop Per Child project. You may remember it. It was the idea being to transform education for kids living in developing countries. And as part of that experience, I spent a bunch of time in Uganda looking at how people were charging cell phones, lighting their homes. And as part of that, I and a group of people decided that there was actually an underlying problem. It wasn't education, it was electricity, and that you could build a company that would support other development projects and get people out of poverty by focusing on the energy side of the equation, so reducing kerosene usage, building systems that would allow people to communicate with their cell phones. And I started an initial company that didn't make it. It was 2008, 2009. It was hard to raise money, but the outcome of that experience was this company, Fenix, that I started in 2009. And I'll spend some more time later telling you more about it, but the idea being that off-grid energy really does serve as this basis for growth.
Thank you. Maybe a bit of background about myself. I'm the founder of AlphaMundi, and the reason for our partnership today with the UNDP is that we're celebrating the 10 years of our impact fund, Social Alpha. Social Alpha was one of many investors that contributed along the way to the growth of both Terrafertil and Fenix. And like a bad novelist, I'm going to reveal the end at the beginning. So both of those companies were acquired by multinationals. And I think that while it is not the only path to scale, it is certainly an incredible proof of concept for the potential of scale of these very innovative business models that were so small when we started. Maybe just we can go back to the beginning when you first started Fenix and Terrafertil. Can you tell us about the early years, the first 2 or 3 years? What did it feel like to innovate in your sectors? David?
When I look back at the early years, the first thing that comes to mind is that we really didn't know what we were doing. It took us a few years to actually figure it out. Now we tell it very easily. This is what we do. But at the very beginning, it was learning by doing. We always knew what we didn't want to be. We didn't want to be one more company. We wanted to create impact. We wanted to create value. We didn't know exactly how. And it took great partners like AlphaMundi and the value added that it came from that to really put our business together and take the path of growth that led us to where we are today. So when I talk to entrepreneurs like ourselves, I always tell that we are not supposed to know everything at the first day. You know, people sometimes ask me, well, "You guys had a great business plan and a great execution." We really didn't. We built it as time went by, and what we always had was passion. What we always had was passion, and through that passion, we were able to build a great culture inside the company. And I think that was a great key to success.
Just following up on that, when we invested in you, I think you were generating about $2 million, maybe $2.5 million of revenues, and operating primarily in Ecuador. Can you tell us a little bit about Terrafertil today? What is the scope of the company?
Terrafertil today operates in 7 countries with the US, Mexico, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, the UK, and Chile, with 5 manufacturing facilities and about 700 employees. We were the majority stake of the equity of the company was acquired by Nestle at the beginning of last year, and now we are expanding into new markets like Brazil, like Canada. And together we are taking our brand and our business model across the globe.
All right, same question for you, Brian, and then I'll ask Charlotte a few questions. Brian, what is Fenix like today?
Should I start with what was it like?
Oh yeah. What was it at the beginning? Yeah. Because when we invested with you, I think it was 2012.
2012.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we started in 2009. We spent the first couple of years figuring out what is a product that is appropriate for rural entrepreneur in Uganda to be, and getting that into production. So we were a team of 6 people working out of San Francisco, but spending a lot of time going back and forth to Uganda. And one of the things, like David, that we knew was that we didn't want to be a not-for-profit. We knew we wanted to be a for-profit company so that over the long term we would be sustainable and we'd be able to provide service and support for customers ad infinitum. We wouldn't be dependent upon philanthropy. And so with that knowledge and the knowledge that the One Laptop Per Child project hadn't been as successful, in part because of their distribution model, we partnered with MTN, which is a large South African telecom, and built a relationship with them to brand our product with their logo, to get over essentially a trust hurdle with rural customers who had no idea who a company named Fenix from California was and if it would be around in the long term. And so over 2009 to 2013, we sold about 5,000 systems for cash at about $175. And what we realized was that wasn't a sustainable business. We couldn't survive selling that few number of kits. And at that point in time, we switched to a pay-as-you-go model, which was a major change for us. We built up systems to manage customer relationships for 2 to 3 years. We built up our team to be able to manage call centers that speak, at this point, 66 different languages across 6 markets, and I'll talk about that a little bit. But we grew and we grew and we grew, and so I guess went through a number of struggles, and we can come back to that too. Today, we are in 6 African countries. We have 9 offices around the world, 1,100 employees, 2,300 commissioned sales agents. So it has grown tremendously. And if you had asked me back in 2009, do I think this is feasible? I would probably have said no, but it has worked out, and we've gotten, I wouldn't call us a unicorn, but we've been able to be successful by kind of incrementally improving all along that way.
And just rebounding on that, can you tell us about the process of acquisition with NG, and then in your case with Nestlé?
Yeah. So one of the biggest challenges we had throughout was raising capital. And one of the kind of Series B small investors was NG's Raison de NG, which is their social impact fund. And so they have used that fund as a way to explore who is working in off-grid energy in a number of cases, but then more broadly in essentially social impact spaces. And so they, from 2014 to 2017, got a sense of what we were about and what our markets were like. And in 2017, we were raising a Series C, and they came back to us and said, well, actually, not only do we want to invest in your Series C, but we want to take the entire round and buy everybody else out. And I won't go into too much details, but after a bunch of negotiation, we did actually close that round, or close the acquisition, and so we are now part of the French multinational NG.
Thank you. David?
Thank you. For us, it was quite an amazing experience. We were at a point in the company where we have grown very much. We had done a lot of investments in the brand. Terrafertil owns the largest health and wellness brand in Latin America, called Nature's Heart, across the region. And we were, for the first time, looking for some equity partners. So we have always kept the entire equity with the founders, and we were, for the first time, looking for equity partners informally, just talking to people and seeing what's around. And we were about to close a deal with a private equity fund, and then unannounced and unexpected, we received a call from Nestlé about wanting to talk and wanted to see what can we do together. For us, dealing with a large multinational, largest food and beverage company in the world, we never thought things will move as they did. The first thing that we saw from them was an absolute respect for what we have done, and wanting to keep the spirit of the company and keep what we have been doing throughout all these years. that was unexpected for us. That was completely unexpected, and I can tell that today, after a little bit more than a year of working together, they have kept their promise. So we did a deal with them where they bought a majority stake of the company, but they kept our company as a standalone, but with the full support of Nestle. At the same time, we both share this commitment to social development. So they have great plans on cacao, on coffee, and they completely embrace the idea of the way we work with our growers and the way we develop our social responsibility strategy, and we have been able to take that to a next level with them. So we've been collaborating with them on many fronts, and it has been a tremendous experience.
Thanks. So in the case of AlphaMundi, just for transparency on financials, we began with small loans of $300,000 to $500,000 to both Fenix and Terrafertil. And then as they grew in scale and as they earned our trust by delivering on the promises, or when they faced hurdles by being transparent upfront about these challenges, we started increasing our commitment to them. And in the case of Fenix, we even went into the equity of the company as minority equity stakeholders. By the time of the divestment and their acquisition by multinationals, we had earned an average of 10 to 13% IRR on both investments across multiple instruments. So just to situate you in terms of returns. Charlotte, what are your views in terms of good business leadership for emerging market SMEs, and your views on impact for these Sustainable Development Goals? And what questions would you put to our fellow panelists?
Thank you, Tim. Wow. I mean, we bask in the reflective glory and admire entrepreneurs like yourself and businesses. I think we have the easy job. I think grit and determination is something that is key ingredient to success with entrepreneurs and senior management. And it's that healthy tension between alignment around what success means and how do you achieve it between all the stakeholders and the ability to, constructively challenge each other and respond. So you kind of have that, gut feeling about making an investment, but you also have to then quantify it and qualify it very to your investment committee. Balancing that out is really exciting for us, but in terms of what we see in leaders, I think it is that passion and vision, and we make a lot of sacrifices in order for themselves to get their companies to those places. I totally appreciate they spend a huge amount of money raising capital, and I think as investors, the best thing we can do is to make that process as painless as possible. I'd like to ask a question, just conscious of time. Perhaps, Brian, to you first, around impact. What would you put in your impact report today? Could you tell us a little bit about that and talk about both the impact in terms of depth and breadth for the beneficiaries?
Thank you. So the Global Off-Grid Lighting Association represents a lot of the types of work that we do, and they believe that of the 17 goals, off-grid lighting has an impact on 10. And so I don't measure every single one of those, but primarily it is the number of beneficiaries who have gotten off of kerosene and are using our solar lights essentially to light their homes and reduce kerosene burns, poisoning, fires, and indoor air pollution. So that's probably number one, the benefit of what we're doing. Creating good jobs is another. Obviously, having a variety of other impacts. We focus on school fee loans as kind of an add-on on top of the solar home systems that we're selling. So figuring out ways to get people to be able to afford an education. There's a variety of other benefits from the credit scores that we're building. And so as far as kind of depth, for depth, we, like I said, have 1,100 employees that we have created jobs for, 2,300 commissioned sales agents across 6 countries in Africa, and then we've sold 600,000 systems so far, and each system lights up essentially a household of about 5 people, so that's 3 million individuals that have been impacted by the work that we're doing. And if you look at the electrification rate in Uganda alone, I think this number is correct, I haven't fully vetted it, but roughly 4.4% of the electrification and connections in Uganda is something that we've had an impact on. So it is, in little one household chunks having a significant impact.
David, going back to the theme of the types of investment you've raised, so you have one of your investors next door to you. Don't want to put you in a tricky situation here, but I think the audience and I would be interested to hear what's been the most interesting or most important capital and terms of investment that have helped your company achieve growth and scale to date.
I don't have to. For us, raising capital was a completely key component of our growth. Is where I personally put a bunch of my time to try to figure the best way to do it, who the best partners are, and the biggest challenge was to match the business model to the capital flow, so and to the terms. So for us, it was an agricultural-based company with capex investments, with heavy investments in the brand that required a long-term vision, and that was sometimes difficult to convey. That in our business, and different businesses have different requirements, but in our business, you invest on the fields, when you invest on when you do heavy capital expenditures, and when you are building a brand, it really takes years, if not decades. So that was a big challenge to find people willing to have the patience to see it through. That was I would say the most important thing, and luckily we were able to find some good people that believed in us, and in the way. I think also one of the good things was transparency. Businesses go like this. So as long as, in my experience, as long as you communicate it and as long as you are open about it, people will understand.
Thank you. I think we have time for a couple of questions from the audience. I don't know if anyone is willing to raise their hand first to ask a question. Yes, please. Rosa, we're getting you a mic. Just 1 second, yeah. And if I can say, impact investing is not just about putting your money in good people and good companies. It's also about actively managing the risk. So typically, the best impact managers have a capacity on the ground. They have their own staff in the investment regions, and they're very proactive, even when using debt instruments, in helping the management of their companies anticipate risk, mitigate it, and overcome it when it materializes. Yes, please, Rosa.
So the question is to David and to Brian. We have heard that you have been successful in, let's say, scale up with kind of big names. How did you ensure that your initial vision of impact will be kept, even when partnering with, organization they may seem stronger than you, and didn't dilute your vision?
I'll start. I think number one was we essentially vetted them when we were going through the process of the acquisition, and meeting Isabelle Cocher from NG and really understanding her vision for decentralized digital renewables, and how we were this very nice Venn diagram overlap of what they were trying to do, gave us confidence that they would continue to allow us to pursue our mission. And that's proven to be the case, and they continue both to support what we're doing and to make investments in other companies that are focused on social impact and off-grid energy. So I think we chose pretty well.
For us, I'll say likewise. These large companies, in the case of Nestle, they either have this commitment to social responsibility or they don't, and they are way larger and they are way more powerful than us. So if they don't have it, we are definitely not going to change it. In the case of Nestle, they do have it. They do have it, and not only they have allowed us to keep the work that we've been doing, but they have helped us scale it up because we share those same visions. We share the vision of creating sustainable value, and we also share the vision of creating leading brands, and that adds value, and it flows through the value chain. So we have been lucky to have them as a partner.
Okay, we're getting close to the end of the panel. I am so sorry that we don't have time for you. Okay, let's just hear the questions. We have 2 more minutes. I want to say also this is an event that happens in the framework of the Building Bridges Week. And we at AlphaMundi came across both Terrafertil and Fenix through multilateral financial institution engagement. So in the case of Terrafertil, we met them at the Forumic conference organized by the Inter-American Development Bank in Latin America every year. And in the case of Fenix, they were brought to our attention by GVEP, which was an NGO set up by the World Bank to foster private sector investments in renewable energy in Africa and Latin America. So I think it's very key to partner with all these development institutions. We're very lucky to have UNDP and so many other UN agencies here in Geneva, and I don't think we exploit their knowledge, their know-how, their networks enough as a private sector interested in sustainable development. Sorry, your question.
Good morning. My name is Hammond, and I work for... Good morning. My name is Hammond, and I work for Solidaridad. Very frequently, we have heard that scaling up social enterprises is very challenging. And one refreshing statement I've heard from Charlotte is fit for purpose, patient capital. I don't know how you have dealt with scaling up social enterprises through what you call fit for purpose, patient capital.
That's a great question, and I think we'll use it to close the round. So maybe David and Brian, your tip to entrepreneurs who are at an earlier stage of growth than you are on how to grow and maybe how to use social capital. And Charlotte, your tip also for investors on how to use hybrid instruments or the blended finance spectrum.
For us, looking back, the key to scale up, it was the culture of the company. The only way you're going to be able to scale up is with, it might sound like a cliche, but I've seen it as an absolute truth, is with a good team. And we build a tremendous team with a very strong culture, and that's what allowed the company to grow. Is you delegate, and you're only able to delegate to people you trust and to people who share your same values and who have a strong sense of belonging in the company. And we are very lucky to have that, and that was the key to our growth.
Quick answer. I think it's listening to the company, understanding, as David had also mentioned, the business model, how that plays out in terms of cash flow projections and when the capital is going to be needed. However, you can never, you don't have a crystal ball. So the first conversation is just understanding what is your use of funds, what is the investor's role amongst the group of the rest of investors that are either at the table or invested in the company or coming along, so that you can be very additional and specific, providing specifically for the needs of that business. I think of the investment vehicle you're investing through or from is important in terms of open-ended or closed-ended. There's a role for both, and that enables you to be more patient. And then I think a common theme here we said is just transparency and discussion with the investors, your partners going along. If you're going to have difficulty in any point in time in meeting the requirements of that investment, speak about it early on. And that's, I guess, that in summary, that would be my thoughts.
And I will second that. If we looked at what the original payment terms to AlphaMundi were back in 2012 versus how we ended up paying over the years, there was a lot of flexibility and patience essentially built into the system. We would not have survived without that, so thank you. A couple of the things that I'll reiterate from what other people have said, being close to the customer, not only for us as the company, but the investors, having on-the-ground presence and understanding of the markets, I think is very important. And then one thing as investors you can think about, and it's something that we were able to do, is make sure that the entire team, not just the management team, is incentivized in the success of the company. We have actually built up a quasi-equity system so that at the time of our acquisition, 100% of the employees, including the cooks and the cleaners and the security guards, all benefited from that, and it allowed us to all be working kind of in the same direction and all across departments, helping to figure out how do we make this business work, and it was a complicated business to figure out.
All right, well, that's the end of our panel. Please join me in giving a big hand to these champions of sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charlotte, team, David, and Brian. So now we're switching gear. We're moving into the pitching session. We're going to have the entrepreneur pitching on financial services in this room. If you're interested in energy and health, you can also